Hey, welcome back to Russ Total Garage. It's another not too cold, but it's cold day. I just spent 9 hours on the road to pick up a Holmes 480 split boom wrecker body or wrecker unit. And it shouldn't have been a 9-hour ride, but it's near the holidays and traffic and started snowing and a weekday. And yeah, it was not fun, but day is not over yet, so I'm going to try to get something done. So I'm thinking I'm going to try to finish up the heater hoses here, get the antifreeze in the engine fired up, maybe test the heater, show you what the heater looks like with the cover on it, and I think the transmission cooler I'll try to get done as well, and that'll pretty much button up the front of this, except for the air conditioning which will be its own whole video series. So a quick thing on the heater, had a whole lot of comments on it, which was fantastic. A couple suggestions from everybody. Why not use a squirrel cage type fan, which are much more efficient? The reason I didn't is because I was trying to build something in a smaller size, and I wasn't worried about 100% efficiency, just something small under there that will work. Remember, it's not getting driven in the winter, so I don't need a windstorm, but it really works well with the fan that's on there. The other thing was, a couple of people said that because it's in recirculation mode, which I understood because the fan is basically recirculating inside cab air, they said the defogger will probably fog the windshield. I don't know if that's going to happen or not. I'll have to test it. I know the heater in my Hudson, which really is not pulling in outside air. It can if you open up there's a vent over the cowl. But with that closed, it's really just doing a recirc. And a couple weeks ago, I had it out at night in a parade, and it was cold. And the defogger worked fantastic with that style. So we're going to try it out. Worst case, if I got to crack a window to let some air in, if it fogs windows, that's okay. But right now, I'm very happy with the amount of airflow I've got through it. If you were going to copy that and only use it as a heater and you didn't need a defogger, I would put louvers right in the front cover that goes over the front of that heater core, and it's going to give you enough heat that you're not going to have any concerns. It'll blow air straight across that core and right out the front. The way I have it now, it kind of pressurizes the box, and then the air comes over to the plenum, goes out the bottom, goes out the top, and it works really well. In fact, let me show you. I've got the fan controller hooked up now. So there is the heater with the cover on it now. It's not very big, which is what I wanted, just kind of tucked up under there. I've got my control switch over here in the dash, and if I turn the key on and turn that on, it's hard to do with one hand, but I'll just crack it and I'll go right to full blast. That's max. And I have this little paper here. You can see the amount of air that it's blowing out that bottom vent. And then you can crank it down to lower speeds, and you're still getting plenty of airflow out there. You can feel it. So it's going to work really well. Don't have to be real high, but honestly, the noise, I think the exhaust will be louder. But that's going to work perfectly for what I want. If you're, like I said, if you're just doing this as a heater only and you don't need the plenum on the side, I'd put louvers right in the front of this thing. And when the weather gets warmer, I'd like to spray some flake on that heater, dress it up a little bit. All right, so I'm hooking up the heater hoses now. Nothing special. One thing I am going to do, again, from comments on the heater, something I never knew about. Some people mentioned a restrictor in the pressure side line going to the heater core that they should put a restrictor in. I've never put a restrictor in any heater core ever. And I've been doing engine swaps a long time. And I've never blown a heater core or anything. I've had the old brass ones rotted just from sitting around, but I've never blown one up. And when I did a search on it, it seems like it's a Ford thing. A lot of LX Mustangs, or say Fox Body Mustangs or the Thunderbirds, and you know, I guess they'd wind up the engine and they'd pop their heater cores. I don't know if that's a Ford heater core thing, and the aftermarket heater core that I have, which is from a Ford truck, but it's aftermarket, resolves that issue, or what, or it's an aluminum deal. I don't know. I've never had it happen, and I have put aluminum cores in other cars. But because I like to experiment, and this is all learning, if I haven't done something before, I'm not afraid to try it. And if I, try it and it doesn't work, that's no big deal. We just modify it and change things around. Just like that heater, if I wanted to build one with a squirrel cage fan and have it pull in outside air for the defroster, I could do that. I just didn't want to on this one because I'm trying to keep something compact. Doesn't mean I'm not going to try it in the future. I like to try different things. This is all for fun, right? You got to learn. The only way you learn is by doing. But as far as a restrictor goes, never done it before. So here's what we're going to do. Because they want, I don't know, what was it, $10 for a restrictor? Seemed kind of ridiculous. Everybody's got a rusted out Chinese socket laying around, right? Well, I got a 12 millimeter, actually made in Japan, socket that looks pretty worn out. It's a 3/8 drive, but I drilled it out with a 3/8 drill bit, so it's 3/8 all the way through. I'm going to put this on the heater hose. I'm going to stick this inside the hose right before the inlet to the heater core and put a restrictor in and just see what it does. Supposedly it does not affect temperature. It just reduces, I guess, the flow when you wind it up, and so you don't blow up your heater core. But we're going to try it regardless. And on the LS, the pressure side feeding the heater core is the smaller of the two ports. I guess that's standard. If you have two sizes, the smaller one is usually the feed to the heater core. At least that's what I've read. Again, I've never put a restrictor in. I've never had to know. So I'm going to put this in the 5/8 hose that comes from the water pump into the heater core. So I'm going to put in the free restrictor and see what happens. And mark the hose so I know how far away it has to be from the end. And it might be a little bit of a snug fit, so I'm going to spray it with some lube, some penetrating oil. Put some in here. Put some on the socket. And see if I can get this in there. This might be a problem. I may have had to pick a smaller diameter socket. Let's see. I think it's time for the hammer. Let's see. Going in. This may not work. Oh, grab something else before we can't get it in. All right, the restrictor is in there. I use a bolt, put it in there and hammer it down into the hose. Now it kind of looks like a snake that swallowed a rat. So next time if I do this, I'll use a slightly smaller socket. There it is inside there. It's down in there. So I don't think it hurt the hose or anything. It was just really tight going in. As you can see the bulge there where it is. But now we'll connect it there. Put the clamp on it, connect it to the heater core, and that's this hose here. Smaller 5/8. I'm using 5/8 hose on both nipples. I just stretch a little bit and put it over the 3/4 outlet and it works fine. So we'll clamp that on, and I think it's time for the final pressure test. All right, let's do a last pressure test on this and see what it looks like. get you over here, try to show you the gauge once I get it set. But I'm going to bring it up to probably 15, 16 pounds. All right, past 16. We're on one of the lines. So far, it looks okay. I'm going to get some soapy water and spray all the connections. Right now, it's looking good. Nothing's moving. But you know how my luck is with this stuff. We're going to be okay. We're going to be all right. Oh, this works. Spray everything. So far, everything is looking good. We are still dead perfect where I was when I put it on. We're good. We are good. Now it's ready, time to put the antifreeze in. I'm gonna take the top radiator hose off. So we're gonna break the seal, but that should be no big deal. And let's put some antifreeze in this thing. Still good. All right, so put antifreeze in an LS. Usually what I do is nothing special. Usually just fill the radiator and go. But the thing is with this one, this swap is different than my others that I did so far because I kept the factory thermostat. Usually I'll use the 2-piece water neck and thermostat, and I'll drill an 1/8-inch hole in the thermostat. I'm sure you guys have done that forever on your small block, big block Chevys, but drill a hole in it so that air can get through it, antifreeze can get through it, and it doesn't matter if the thermostat's open or not. I don't remember if the factory thermostat has any kind of, sometimes they'll have a little hole with a little, almost like check valve that floats around in it. I don't remember if this has that or not. So because of that, the best way to fill up these LS engines is to actually remove the upper radiator hose and fill the block right from the water pump. Fill that up to the top, put the hose back on, and then fill the radiator. So that is how I'm going to do it on this one. All right, so I'm going to pop the top radiator hose off. Get that out of the way, nice and easy. And we're going to get a funnel. That looks kind of clean. And a paint strainer. Why am I using a paint strainer? Because I'm not using new antifreeze. What would you expect from me? I've got the antifreeze that I drained out of the 2001 Silverado. And I put it in a jug and I filtered it, sorta. And I tested it. And according to my handy dandy tester here, this stuff's good for -7 degrees. I thought it was higher than or lower than that before. -7, and what do we got for a boiling point? 260 degrees boiling. So that'll be just fine. And what I do with them, if I test them and it's not acceptable, I use it as the dilution for the new jug. So I'll put new antifreeze in, but with the old, and mix it and bring it up to what it needs to be. No sense throwing it away. It's just in replacement of water, I use the old antifreeze if it's no good. This stuff's ready to go. So now can start filling this thing up. Until it spills out of the water neck and I make a mess. I think I'll stop the video so you don't just sit here watching me pour antifreeze. Yep, I spilled it. It filled up, and then it was really fast that it filled up. So I felt nothing for, I heard nothing for quite a while, and all of a sudden, boop, it's out. So, yep, I spilled it on the ground, spilled it on the engine, whatever. At least it's not all nice and painted. Now, the block is full. Now, we go for the radiator. All right, I'm about an inch below the top of the radiator because I don't have an overflow tank on this yet. I have one, I just don't want to put it on yet until I figure out where my air intake's going to be, where my AC hoses are going to be, so I can get it mounted out of the way of everything. I think that's on all the way. Yep. All right. So there's enough antifreeze in here now. Should be able to start it up. See if we can warm it up enough to get the thermostat opened up. I hooked up the battery. It's actually just sitting on the back on the frame right now. So we can fire it up. Let it run for a while, watch the temp, feel the hoses, see if I can feel the thermostat open up. All right, I've run it around 10 minutes. I'm probably around 195, 190, 192, somewhere around there. And the heater hoses are hot. The thermostat, I believe, opened. The lower radiator hose does not feel hot, but the radiator level dropped down quite a bit. See in there. I have you right. Down quite a bit on the level. Originally, I was like an inch below the top. I dumped the rest of the antifreeze that I had already ready to go. We have flow through the radiator right now. I'm just going to turn on the heater to test it, and then I'll shut it down. I'm not going to top it off completely because I want to put the overflow tank on it. Crank the heater all the way up, just check it. It's good, plenty of hot air. Turn it down. Yeah, that's going to work. That's going to work good. Alright, so that's all I'm going to do with the coolant system for now. It's good to go. I'm just not going to top it off completely until I get everything done and I can mount my overflow tank. Everything's working like it should. I'm thinking small block, big block Chevy stuff, you know, so I'm feeling the lower radiator hose, and when the thermostat opens, the upper hose gets hot. Well, this is the opposite. The upper hose is warm and the lower hose is cool because the radiator is doing its job. It's going the opposite direction. So the coolant is going from the top to the bottom and then back to the engine. So I'm like, why isn't the lower radiator hose hot yet? Oh yeah, that's why, because the radiator is actually doing its job. So this is all good. I'm gonna let this cool down overnight. No leaks, it looks like. Pressure test was good. So next thing will be transmission cooler. I've got an Amazon 40K trans cooler. We'll put that on, and Man, one step closer to driving it, except it had to snow today. All right, it is the next day, and I'd like to get the transmission cooler in to finish up this video. One more thing. Normally this would be a 5-minute install. Not gonna be on this truck. Reason being, I have almost no room between the condenser and the grill. I may have to notch the grill to fit this cooler. This is an Amazon 40K cooler, probably a knockoff of the TrueCool 40K, whatever you want to call it. Comes with hardware, comes with some hose that's supposed to be or should be rated for transmission line, but has no markings on it whatsoever. But I did install one of these on the 51 Hudson, and it's working fantastic. Nice thing about this running a 4L60E is you can actually look at your transmission temperature. And when I did that on the Hudson, honestly, I never saw it get above 100 degrees driving around. So it's working very well. It's a big cooler. And it would fit perfectly right here. And that's where it's going to have to go. But it's about 1.25 inches thick, and that's like all the space I have at the top. I don't even think I have it that much at the bottom, and it's putting it right up against the condenser, which I don't know if is the best thing. It'd probably be better to have an air gap between them a little bit. So we'll see if I can at least space it a little bit. But I have a good feeling I'll be notching the grill. So there's nothing I can do. There's no cooler in the radiator, so it's not like I can just run the radiator cooler. I have to install something. And if it's going to be a standalone cooler, it can't just be something small. You know, it's got to work. So as much as I hate to think about notching that factory grill, I have a feeling it's going to be my only option. So I'm going to see if I can make something work with the bracketry that came with it, or if I have to weld up something different. You want it rigidly mounted. You don't want it to be able to flex. You know, it is only aluminum. If this thing can get twisted around, it's going to break. So let me see what I come up with, and I'll come back in a little bit. All right, it's mounted. Wasn't so terrible, at least as long as it all works okay. It's very close to the condenser. I've got a slight gap in there. The kit comes with a lot of hardware, straps, bolts, and stuff, and I pretty much used all stuff right from them, from the kit. I welded one of the straps that comes with it to my condenser mount, so that catches this corner here. Another one of their straps over on this corner is just bent around and attached to the radiator support. And on the bottom, I actually used, they come with some self-tappers screws as well, like this. And I was actually able to get a couple spots lined up with the bottom of the condenser. It has a row of holes, and I shot right into those, and this thing's on there. It's definitely not going to move. So now all that's left is to connect the hose, and I have my factory transmission lines right underneath here, so that's easy enough just to connect. I already put my fittings on both ends. They're just going to come down and tie into there, so that's pretty simple. So I guess all that's left is to put the hoses on and make sure it doesn't leak. All right, hoses are connected. Fire it up. Make sure there's no leaks. See what happens. okay. I don't see anything dripping. Here's a better look at it installed. Really easy to put in. So like I said, I used a couple shooter screws that were supplied right into the bottom of the condenser, spaced it off a little bit, and then this bracket here is one of the ones they supplied. I just welded it to my condenser mount, and this is one of them again they supplied. I just bent it around the condenser and bolted it into the radiator support. Got my bolts on the top there. They're actually welded on the back and ground down pretty flat so they're away from the AC condenser. And that's really all there is to it. They give you a bunch of fittings, including fittings to screw into your radiator and attach to your lines, a bunch of stuff. So half of it I didn't even use, but it went in easy. So this is the third one now that I've used. I don't expect to have any problems with it. All right, so with that stuff done, let's update the budget. Heater hose and antifreeze. If you had to buy that stuff new, I'm gonna guess about $30. I reused heater hose from the Silverado donor and a piece I had laying around, so really didn't cost me anything. So counting it as 30, that gets the truck value to $65.49, out of pocket $31.09. The transmission cooler was for Amazon. That was $75. That gets the truck value to $66.24, and out of pocket $31.84. So that's where we are for now, until we keep adding more stuff. All right, so that's going to be it for this one. So cooling system's done. Trans cooler is in. The only pain in the butt right now, well, one of the next pain in the butts, is I am going to have to notch the grill for it to fit all the way in. The grill bars are they're crashing right into the transcooler. Once again, air conditioning is causing the problems. If I didn't put AC in this truck, it'd be further along by now. Because now I'm going to have to do that, and I have to make all the AC lines before I can even put the grill on, just because I can't get to the fittings. Yeah, the bottom one, I say, yeah, maybe get to the top, and I can't get to the bottom one. So better to make the air conditioning lines and stuff now while I can get to that stuff. And that will be an adventure in itself, because I'm going to be using a mix of new stuff and used stuff, and I don't even know if it's all going to work. So after all this effort, I hope it's going to work. Otherwise, I'll be replacing parts in the future. But right now, I think air conditioning is going to have to be the next thing, because I want to get this grill on and then just finish up the lights and stuff. And then the nose is done. I got to do the air intake, wipers, put the seats back in, you know, all that kind of stuff to get it so it's drivable. And then the bed will be the last thing that gets done on the truck. And the weather is not going to make that easy at all right now. So I'll think about it, but I think I have all the fittings I need to do the air conditioning, and I suppose that will be next. So yeah, I think so. I'm so undecided right now. I'm just glad things are moving along, but the weather's gone bad and it's messing with things. So anyway, I guess, like I said, that's it for this one. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you for subscribing, and we'll see you on the next one. Later.